And we are live. Welcome, welcome, one and all, to another special edition of Live with Venice. I am your host, Venice Irving, and it is a pleasure to be with you today. So, I'm glad that you are here on your Ash Wednesday celebrating with us. We are here with a special guest, Keisha Thorpe, and you would have seen her in the news. We publicized her all over our Jamaican platforms because the teachers in Jamaica were just joyful and celebrating here because she won the Global Teacher Prize for 2021, and we are so proud of her and all her accomplishments. So we are so happy that she's here. But the first thing I want you to do is to settle in. First, like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And remember, you can always put your comments and your questions in the comment below. Big her up now. You have to big her up, And we're gonna answer all the questions today. And then if you have any questions, you can put in the comment box too. All right. So guys, we are ready to talk to Miss Keisha Thorpe. We are so happy to have her on the platform with us. Welcome, welcome, Keisha. I keep on saying Keisha. I'm so sorry. Welcome, welcome, Keisha Thorpe. Welcome. How are
Yeah,
you doing today?
thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. It's the end of the
It's
work day, but I'm trying to get a little bit of energy
right.
just to
I
end this
know.
right.
And this is our Ash Wednesday holiday. And I know people are at home chilling and relaxing, but I thought this would be a perfect day to give people some inspiration. And that's what you are. You are an inspiration. And I'm going to tell you why a little bit
Thank you.
later in the interview. But first, we're going to start off with who is Keisha? Tell us a little bit more about you and who you are.
Who am I? I grew up in Jamaica. I was born in Kingston. I grew up in Jamaica. I went to high school at St. Andrew High School for girls, and I ran track at St. Andrew High School for girls. And as a result of that, I was able to get a scholarship, and I
Yes.
attended Howard University, graduated Howard University with a major in English, minor in political science. And I actually started out as a pre-law major. I wanted to be a lawyer, but
Right.
I somehow, along the course, I kind of switched gears and decided that I wanted to teach. I had an opportunity to mentor students at a local public school and also tutor them and really get to understand what it takes for a teacher to really educate students and how I think it was then that I really understood the importance of a teacher in a child's life.
Nice.
And so that really made me shift gears into wanting to help some of those kids because I realized that we had some of the same stories. Coming to America, everyone thinks
Yes.
that it's this dream, that they see on television, but they don't know that there are kids here that are struggling every day, like kids in Jamaica, and there's poverty everywhere, just like there's poverty in Jamaica. And so, because I had the opportunity to get an education, a college education, I really wanted to pass that on because when I think about uh, representation here in the US and how we have so many Black babies in school and they're looking for those role models and they're looking for that representation. They're looking for people who have made it out to kind of pull them up and give them that hope and that it is possible,
It is.
to be successful. I wanted to be one of those people that kind of really carve out a path of success for them.
Okay, and you are a shining example of that. But I want to take you. I want you to take the viewers back to where you began. Tell us about your family. Where in Jamaica are you from?
I was born in Kingston,
You're born
and
in Kingston.
I was raised in Trelawney, and
Mhm.
with my grandmother and my sister. And then after high school, after my grandmother decided to move back to Kingston, um,
Mhm.
I was one of those kids who I moved around a little bit. I moved around a lot, so I can't say I have one specific place that I called home. I just knew I lived
Okay.
in Kingston.
Okay, I get you. All right, so you became a teacher after first studying English political science. Was there something
Yeah.
about Jamaican teachers that taught you what teaching was all about? Because you got your early teaching years here at in Jamaica. You went to primary school, correct? And high school here. So what was it that you learned from Jamaican teachers being in the Jamaican classroom?
You know, teaching here in the United States is totally different from teaching in the US. And what I
Right.
realized, the technique that they use, in Jamaican system, which is the British system, is a lot more
Right.
teacher directed, and in the US system, it's a lot more student centered.
Okay.
Students are in charge of their classrooms.
Charge.
Students
Right.
really, right, teachers really are the facilitators of learning. And in the
Mm.
Jamaican classroom, I can remember just sitting down, taking notes in the whole entire.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not gonna say it's actually a bad thing, because it really prepared me for college. Because when you go to college and you sit in that classroom, and you've been lectured to for an hour and a half, and you're trying not to fall asleep, that
Right.
really prepared me for that. But when it comes to foundational learning, you definitely need students to be a lot more engaged in what they're learning. And one way of engaging students and making sure that the things that they're learning, they're able to transfer those skills into life, instead of really that rote memorization, which is, I mean, I still remember definitions like photosynthesis and the different parts of the body, because it's like, you have to memorize those things. While here
Right.
in the US, it's more of conceptual. We do a lot of schools do project-based learning. It's
Right.
about mastery of a certain skill that you can actually use to transfer outside of your classroom to solve real world problems. So
Right.
I really definitely, even I do appreciate both education system. They prepare students in different ways. So I mean, I can't say that I'm going to criticize one over the other, because I'm like I said, it definitely prepared me for the challenges that I would have faced in college, in which a lot of students also did not have that note-taking technique, the organization, and
Yeah.
all those things that they
Right.
needed when it came to that level
Mm.
of direct instruction that colleges usually have.
Okay, but Keisha, I must say to you that the Jamaican educators and the teaching institutions are now embracing student-centered learning and doing more project-based learning, as you said, and helping our teachers to teach and train our students with critical thinking and all of that.
Mhm.
So I do remember those days of traditional learning and rote memorization. I can still remember some poems from back in the day because we just had to memorize. You know what I'm talking about? But now it's different, and they're
That's
embracing
good.
different techniques. So kudos to our
Yeah.
Jamaican educators.
Yeah,
Um,
children are changing, and the landscape of education is changing a lot. Especially with the integration of technology. And
exactly.
really preparing students to become more independent learners. We really have to embrace that 21st century student-centered classroom.
Absolutely. Now, I want to talk about motivation. The first thing I want to say, I know you mentioned just now that something motivated you to switch from English political science and to do teaching. I want you to talk a little bit more about that. And then I also want to talk about what motivated you to actually apply for the Global Teachers Prize. Because there must have been something or something in you or someone who said, Keisha, I think you'd be great with that. But first, tell me what motivated you to go into teaching itself.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
one of the reasons why I switched gears was my experience with other children that I saw, that needed that really had, budding potential, and they
Right.
had lack of resources, and I think they just needed someone to champion for them. And I think one of those things that really spoke to me was the fact that I shared a similar story with a lot of the students that I come across. Not just then when I was in college tutoring, but also now the students that I'm teaching. Poverty is everywhere. That's one of the common things that you see across education systems across the world, right? And so those students need someone to be in that classroom to advocate for them, someone who believes in them, someone who understands and will be able to empathize with them. And someone who believe in them and not see them from a deficit mindset, but because you have gone through that journey, you are able to relate to what their experiences are. And I think for me, because I could relate to a lot of their experiences, I wanted to be a champion for them. Um, Moving forward, I was actually chosen as the life changer of the year. So the life changer of the year in the US is a top teacher in the US who is making an impact in students' lives and on also leadership in the teaching profession and contribution to the teaching profession. And so with that and it really connects me with another league of teachers that I was able to collaborate with, that I was able to have different conversations with, network with, share resources, share best practices, and just share ideas and even just work together. And I remember that was actually how I knew about the Global Teacher Prize was one of the former winners actually told me about the Global Teacher Prize and told me that I'm doing some great things in the classroom, and the way that I advocate for my students, uh, applying for the Global Teacher Prize will allow me that platform to advocate for them at the highest level. But when I actually did apply for it, I never really envisioned that it would be this big. I
Never
just wanted
did.
to make sure that I had the resources. At that time, I knew that I knew what I wanted to do for my students. I knew how much I wanted to advocate for them. I was already advocating for them, but just with lack of resources, and then you go into these meetings and you sit for 2 minutes or 3 minutes to turn the mic on, and then after 3 minutes beep and they turn the mic off, and I'm like, okay, did they even hear me? Did they even know what I'm asking for my students? Did I even make a difference within 3 minutes? And so I thought that this would be a great platform. And so yes, I definitely applied because I really wanted to have that voice for my students, and you know
So,
somehow
so
it just
tell me,
worked
you were
out.
saying that you're advocating for your students and you're doing great things in the classroom. Tell me some examples of things that you've been doing in the classroom so the viewers can get a feeling and an understanding of the
Yeah.
changes that you've been making.
So I teach at international high school, and the international high school is 100% English language learners. My students represent
Okay.
about 23 different countries, and they speak over 30 different languages. And all of my students are also on free and reduced meals, which means that about 98 to 99% of my students are from low income families, or low
Right.
income backgrounds. And so it's very important because not all my students desire to go to college. It takes 7 years to acquire the English language and to become proficient as a native speaker. And
Right.
so when my students come in, I teach high school, I teach 12th grade. So when my students come in at ninth grade, they've already at a deficit of 3 years and they have so much to catch up on. And so it is no wonder why, some of them get to 12th grade and of course they have not mastered the language. Some catch on easier than others, because of their level of education back in their own country. And we know a lot of the students who come in also have had interrupted education, which means that, at some point, maybe for a year or a few months, they have not gone to school. And so they have a lot of learning loss. And so while we have a lot of students that may thrive in the 4 years and may be able to meet college criteria, we have those students who have interrupted education and have excessive trauma who may not get to that point. And so we
Right.
still have to make sure that whatever we're teaching them in the classroom, they're still learning those skills that they can transfer into the real world, to advocate for themselves, to engage civically, to understand what civic engagement in, like voting, speaking up for their rights, writing letters to the mayors, board, the Board of Education, you know, um, just really participate in their community in a productive way where they know that these constituent leaders who they vote in are going to be attentive to their issues, and to make sure that there are some kind of social impact in their community that will benefit them. So just learning, just teaching them, from that perspective, how to, through social justice lens, how to give them a voice and how they can advocate for themselves on a daily basis. Because as immigrants, they go through a lot of different struggles and a lot of different challenges,
Right.
especially with the last administration. And we're still, some of them are still living in
Yeah.
fear. We have students, not necessarily from my school, but we do have young children in the US that are still undocumented, and they're living with that fear. And so we want to make sure that even though they're undocumented, they still have rights. So, in my classroom, I let them know what their rights are and how to really execute, and make and enforce, and making sure that whatever their rights are, they're not being violated, and whatever those policies are, they're being enforced properly.
Okay. Now, Keisha, I listened to an interview that you did, and you mentioned that you altered the curriculum to meet your students' needs.
Hmm.
Can you tell me how
Yes.
you did that?
Yeah. So, I'll say, traditionally, in a mainstream classroom, you'll have, say, okay, well, kids are reading these 5 books, right? And they'll read these 5 books, and they'll write all these essays, and they'll do all these different academic, learnings, or assignments or projects that has nothing to do with life, nothing to do with skills that they
Yes.
can transfer, outside of the classroom. Like I said, back then when we had church education, we had to. I remember studying thematic texts and studying the themes, and memorizing quotes from the text. And my students don't have to memorize quotes from a text. Like, for example, we just completed Antigone. Antigone is a play about, just and unjust society and just and unjust leaderships, and I'm able to,
Right.
uh, you know, have my students, and the best part about my classroom is that we have this global perspective. All my students
Mhm.
have these large worldviews because they come from the Middle East, they come from Africa, they come from the Caribbean, they come from South and Central America, and they bring all of those global perspectives into the classroom, and they share with each other. When we talk about role of women in society, we talk about, we find stories that, for example, one story we're using, Story for an Hour, where the woman feels trapped in her marriage because back then women were considered property of their husbands. Women were not able to vote; they were domesticated. And so we talk about what the roles of what the different roles are in society, in of women in the Middle East, of women in their different countries. They were able to interview, other. Um, we found a large body of, teachers from the Global Teacher Prize. And that's one of the great things about the Global Teacher Prize, right? It connects, it networks me with all these other teachers across the globe. So I
Yes.
got their information, and I had my students interview them, a lot of women teachers across the globe from different countries, and ask them about what is the role of women in your society? What does that look like? How can, and then my students go on a social media campaign and talk about, how we can fight for women's rights, what's right and what's wrong, and how women rights are human rights and equal rights and all those different things. So giving them a voice, and using their community, and using their background experiences, using their culture, information from their own background to really infuse that into learning and make it more engaging and interesting for them.
That is wonderful. I love the fact that you are talking about you are now having them interview the teachers around the world and getting a global perspective, getting what they are doing, and they come with their own information from their backgrounds and their families and socio-cultural, and economic backgrounds too, and they put it in the classroom, and then you use that
Yeah.
to draw out the information and to give them
Yes.
knowledge to go to use in the real world. And that is the point, in the real world. Too many times we're in the
Yeah.
classroom and we don't have anything to use in the real world. We're sitting there, we can quote
Yeah.
everything out of the textbook, but can we do the job? No,
Exactly. You know, I want to produce global citizens. I want to produce
absolutely.
students who have a global perspective, students who in the 21st century and beyond will be able to compete on a global scale. I want students who are going to be prepared when they come out my classroom to solve real world problems, you know, and
Right.
navigate life.
Okay, so let us now go back to you applying to this Global Teacher Prize. You said a former winner said, I think you should apply. You applied. So, what I want to ask you, one, did you believe that you would have won?
You know, there are so many, you know, but when I got to the top 50, so they picked the top 50, and when I
Right.
got to the top 50, I was already astonished. And then when I started reading some of the work and the bios of all of the other wonderful
Or the
teachers,
others, yes.
honestly, I knew that what I was doing was special, and I knew that I have definitely put work in, but we're all special. And I was like, what sets me
Yes.
apart from them? You know, for me, it would take someone on the outside to say, yes, this sets you apart. Because for me, everyone is doing such great things. And I think that's one of the best thing about this prize is it brings, it highlights really the work that teachers are doing inside and outside the classroom across the globe. And we share so many
Right.
different things. And then there are things that we don't necessarily share in terms of our practices, which we are able to learn from each other just by reading each other's bios and hearing each
Right.
other's stories. And you find out how phenomenal a lot of these teachers are and how
Right.
much dedication they have to making students great. I mean, it's just amazing.
So, after the top 50, then you have what? Top 10?
After top 50, it was top 10. And when I made top 10, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have 1 in 10 chances. Yeah, I mean, it was
It was
crazy.
exciting, right?
It was, I think, you know, it took a month before they actually announced, a little over a month before they actually announced the winner. And honestly, for almost a month, I had just butterflies.
So tell me, what was
Because
the reaction of your family? I mean, what were they
I mean, when I
saying?
made top 10, when I made top 10, I think everyone in my corner, they're like, I believe you're gonna win. You got this. They're like, oh, we read everyone's bios,
Oh,
everyone's amazing,
good.
but we think you got this. It kind of gave me confidence. But again, by the time we get to the top 10 and narrowed it down a little bit more, you just see how much more the work of those top
Right,
10 teachers are so amplified. And you're like, oh my goodness, like,
right.
is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? Yeah. So it
All
was a
right.
little nerve-wracking, but at the same time, it was exciting, mysterious, and
Right. Yes, yes,
everything that makes up a good action movie.
yes. What about your students? Because I'm sure there must have been like just budding with
Yeah,
excitement, couldn't wait
yeah,
to hear.
they were kind of like on the edge of their seat. And I try not to, you know, a lot of times they would ask, Miss, when is it happening? When do we hear? When do we hear? And I try to not, because every time someone asks me, I just get
Yes,
nervous.
nervous. Yeah. All right. So you finally get to the top 10. They take about a month. I think you were on the TV when you heard, because I saw you on screen and saw
Yes,
the excitement on your face. So you had to sit there when they announced it, correct?
yes,
And you had your family around you. When
yes.
they
I had
announced your name, what was the feeling?
I mean, priceless. I mean, it's all played out on screen, and every time I see it, every time I see it, I'm like, it never gets old.
Yes,
I think it's
yes.
had so many hits on YouTube. It's ridiculous.
I know, right? We were
I mean,
in
you could
Jamaica
actually see.
here.
Yeah, I mean,
Listen,
it was a proud
I
moment.
picked you up from top 50. From
Oh
top
wow!
50, I picked you up and I put you in my group and I was and then when I saw top 10, I said, no man, no, she can get it. And when I saw you were the winner, listen to me.
Yes.
Jamaicans, especially the teachers fraternity here, listen, we were just on the roof, excited for you. And we don't even
Oh
know
my
you.
goodness.
Most of we don't even know you. But once you said Jamaica, you know.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yes.
I
Yes.
can just
Me,
imagine the
I definitely
excitement.
carry that as a badge of honor. I
It
definitely carry it as
sure
a badge of
is.
honor. Yeah. you know.
It sure
And
is.
one of the things I never do is forget where I come from. You
Right.
know, I it's a part of my story. It's definitely a part of my story.
It
And
sure
when
is.
every time you think about where you are in life, you always can. It's always good to kind of just like take a step back and just reflect on the
Yeah.
journey and where you have come from, because every
Right.
all of it is a part of your success story.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we listen when we talk about national heroes and we talk about great people like you say, both as Shelley and Fraser Price, we've got to push Keisha Thorpe in that mix too. Listen, I mean, I can't tell you how we were just all excited and bigging you up and just wanting you to do well and grateful that you won and putting your country. Yes, you represented USA, but we still have the Jamaica flag flying. Can we say
Of
yes?
Of
Go
course,
ahead.
Jamaica has a knack for producing great people. In the
And
diaspora
great
here as well,
teachers, great
yeah,
teachers.
there's so many great um, business leaders here,
Yes.
teachers here, um, lawyers and doctors, and just so
Hmm.
many different people here in the diaspora, people who are working in the White House, people
Yes,
who are council members, who are mayors, and senators, and they're Jamaicans. And it's
that's
it's 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 so it's really a proud moment to know that I'm able to wear my flag, among all of these other Jamaicans who are here representing the diaspora in a good way.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, Kashia, I want to ask also, when you came to Jamaica, you did your media tour and stuff like that. What other responsibilities did you have now as the winner? What do you have to go to different countries? Do you have to speak at conferences? What are those responsibilities like?
So I wouldn't necessarily say that those are responsibilities of the prize. I would say that the prize gives teachers a platform to
Okay.
to do knowledge sharing, to do
Right.
um, to
Right.
network, to
Right.
really, like I said, have a seat at the highest table. It's access,
Mhm.
right? So there's some places that you would have wanted to be in, to be a voice, to share your voice, to advocate, that you were not, those doors would have not been open. Or even if
Open.
those doors have been open, you go in, but you don't get to speak to the right person who you want to speak to. And not only that, but just to really champion the causes that you're advocating for, at the
Mhm.
highest level. And now people are listening. People are going to listen because, this is, one of those things that spotlight teachers who are doing great work. And when people know that you're doing great work and you're in the spotlight, they're more apt or willing to give you some time to listen to you.
Right.
And there's so
Right.
much in education. I'm not going to say that, my hope is that, I can change the world, but
Right.
it takes a while. But at the same time, I definitely want to use this platform to create some kind of impact in education, in whatever way I can. Coming to Jamaica wasn't about a media tour per se. It was more
Right.
so of, I have a nonprofit organization,
Mhm.
and my nonprofit organization definitely is something that keeps me tied to Jamaica, and tied to my roots. Because every year, my sister and I, Dr. Trisha Thorpe, definitely come to Jamaica and have a scholarship and athletic convention, because we want to make sure that we give students and student athletes the opportunity that we were afforded. And they always say that when you make it out of poverty, you have an obligation to make sure you pull others up. And so, my grandmother always said, to whom much is given, much is required. And it's our obligation to make sure that someone else pave that way for us, and we need to make sure that we pass the baton on, as well. And so my sister and I, with our nonprofit organization, our one of our goal is to have students achieve a debt-free education, because, first and foremost, I know what a debt-free education means, right? And if we're going to make sure that we continue to disrupt or break the cycle of poverty, we need to make sure that these students have equitable free education, and that they're able to access education at the highest level in order to do so. And so we want to make sure that we're providing that for students and student athletes. And so again, my my purpose for visiting Jamaica wasn't a media tour per se. It was more so of, you know, coming to Jamaica and speaking with the people that I need to speak to in order to make sure that the the things that we're doing are in alignment with what they're doing for students in education, and also just an opportunity to really collaborate and not to um, what they call it, reinvent the wheel per se, but how can we together as a collective body come together with all of the knowledge and skills and resources that we have to make education more equitable for all students across the board, and make sure all students who desire to have access to a higher education is able to do so.
Absolutely. I love what you said. So now I have just two more questions for you. First one is, we all say it takes a village to raise someone. Who is in your
Mhm.
village?
Who is in my village? My sister, Dr. Trisha Thorpe, she is my other half. Without her, there's no me. I think we just really utterly complete each other. Sounds like a marriage relationship, but it's somewhat of a marriage relationship. but but we really complete each other. We really look out for each other. We really are each other's big support system. I have the late great um, the late great John Messam, who just passed, was a part of that village and has always been a part of that village. Andrea Messam is a part of that village. I have a daughter. My daughter is a part of that village. I have a brother-in-law, Michael Boris, and he's a part of that village. And then I do have a few mentors, that are part of the village. It really, and I have my church family. I go to the City of Praise family ministries, and they are great supporters of what I do as well, and keep me spiritually grounded. Because you definitely know that sometimes you just need that anointing to
You
get up every
sure
day and
do.
do this work as a teacher. And
Yes,
so I do have a lot of those spiritual folks who pray over me and continue to encourage me and keep me grounded.
that's good. Okay, and your grandmother, is she still here?
No, my grandmother has passed, and yeah, I definitely
Oh,
needed to mention her. Miss
yes,
Justina Daly, Miss Pretty.
yes,
She is my guardian angel, so she's definitely
yes.
still a part of my village.
All
So
right.
yeah.
So my last question to you is, as you know, because of the corona and the things that teachers had to go through this crisis and this pandemic, the criticisms that teachers have gotten, the amount of different policies that they have to abide by, the new regulations because of this pandemic, everything, it has stressed some teachers out. There is a massive exit of teachers now leaving education sector, not only in the USA but also in Jamaica too. And I want you to give the teachers a little bit of inspiration and motivation. What would you say to a teacher who is looking to leave the education sector? Or maybe a teacher who is just discouraged, or a teacher who is just, just down and feeling like they want to leave. What would you say to them?
You know, there's a saying that says those who can't or cannot teach, right? Because back then, teachers were not necessarily considered at the highest of the
Right.
professional rank, right? So those who cannot do something else go to teach, and now it's those who can teach, because now that rhetoric has changed, because teaching requires so much. And during the pandemic, we have so many kids that look up to us because there's so many things that they don't get at home, and those kids come to us for a safe space. Sometimes I just want all the teachers to know that sometimes we are the only safe space that they have. Sometimes we are the only trusting adult that they see in their lives every day. Sometimes we are the only one that is encouraging them. So they need us. We are an important part of that equation that's pushing the legacy of education forward, that is helping to break the cycle of poverty for these young kids. You are innovative. All of these kids depend on you. They depend on you each day. They depend on you, and society depends on you to uh, create these future leaders, because without you in the classroom, there is no them, right? So if there's no teachers, I mean, we both depend on each other. If there's no students, there's no teachers. But if we don't have teachers, then we don't have successful students. And so in order for, it's not just, teachers have to really understand how important they are to a child's life and also to their economy. You know, without them, there's no progress in the economy. Teachers make every single profession possible, including government, including business leaders, including parents, and the jobs that parents do. So they are a very important part of a child's life, a family's life, professional life, the country's life, the country's well-being, the country's sustainability. So I would encourage you to not give up. Just continue to champion the causes. Continue to understand that you are important, you are valuable. If no one has told you, you are that missing piece of what every child needs, of what every country needs. So just continue to do the hard work. And whenever you feel like uh, you don't want to go on anymore, just remember your why. Remember why you got into this. And I'm a very spiritual person as well, and we as teachers, we have this special gift for a reason. God saw a problem and he put us on earth to fix it, and if we are not there, that problem continues. And I think one of the reasons we continue to also have a lot of poverty is because we don't have a lot of teachers who are gifted teachers that are in the profession. And so we definitely need to call on all stakeholders, government, community, everyone to really kind of start rallying around teachers and support them, because they need that support, because we're losing our teachers. If we lose our teachers, then, we're progress is, we're not going to continue to have the kind of progress we need to become a better country, to have better homes, better families, better lives, better standard of living, So, and we need to continue to pass that legacy of education on from generation to generation to create better, a better future.
Right. All right, there you have it. I'm just gonna go through the comments. Letters, what do they say? Get that energy. Well, thank you all so much for joining us with Miss Keisha Thorpe. She is the Global Teacher Prize winner for 2021. She was born in Jamaica but migrated to the USA afterwards. But we are so grateful for her. We thank you, Keisha, for your shining example. We thank you that you are a beacon to those looking on, and that you do carry your Jamaican flag, waving it high. So thank
Always.
you so much. And all the best with all your endeavors, with all your advocacy and all the projects that you're planning to do. I wish you all the best. And guys, remember, keep it locked here. I am on sabbatical right now, but I will come back again soon with more interviews for you to be educated about what other teachers are doing in the world. So thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.
Right.
Bye,
Thanks for having
Keisha.
me.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.